Chapter 5. The Men They Couldn't Hang. Robyn Nudd and the Sheriff of Nottingham are moored at Camden Lock, Camden Town, London, NW 18AF. I knew it would not take long for the Dibble to arrive. So, it was time for me to move, and I had to move quickly. North of the Gap, a certain element of society uses the lingo. It enables us to communicate secretly with each other and reduces the chance of informants and spies being able to understand what is being said. This helps us avoid the unwanted attention of the men of the watch, whom we always called the Plod, and their officers, the Dibble. The Quizzers are something else again. Half empire and half church, they are members of the Inquisition. Still, there is little difference between them all. They are all kingsmen, mean, savage, violent bullies, and we hate them more than we do the Templars. The Dibble will be all over me in about 2 minutes, I said to myself. Best move this body and see to my stash. Slowly, I pushed the body as far as the pole would stretch and away from the sheriff. I watched as it drifted out into the middle of the canal. It took a lot of effort, and I was breathing heavily when, to my amazement and disgust, the body started to float right back toward me. I stared in disbelief and shook my head. This was not going to be a good morning. "This is the start of the worst day of my life," I said. I heard in my mind the voice of my mentor and surrogate mother, Judy, reply, "The worst day of your life, so far." I replaced the pole on the roof and nipped down to the bow. I kept the key on a lanyard around my neck. I swiftly opened the bow hatch. Then I entered the boat from the front, or as we bargees call it, the bow hatch. I quickly checked that all the holds were safe, secure, and still secretly hidden. "The last thing you need is the Dibble nosing around when you have a boat full of contraband," I said softly to myself. As soon as I was happy that everything was as secure as it could possibly be, I took stock of my situation. There was no easy way out of this predicament, so as Judy used to say, look good, feel good, do good. Thinking of Judy again gave me pause for a moment. Judy Teen was a huge influence in my life. She had bought me from my father when I was nearly 3, and she had brought me up in her brothel, the Spotted Walrus, a cosy inn on the quayside of the Liverpool docks. It had been a good life looking after the ladies, warm, clean work, with plenty of food and somewhere safe to sleep. And it was a true introduction to the street life, which was the lot of us city folk. And so, I followed Judy's instructions. It was time to change out of my work clothes, a loose, rough spun chemise and shortened hose, and into my best clothes, a loose, rough spun chemise and shortened hose. I threw some smack on, like an artist throws paint around a canvas, then carefully applied my lippy before heading up to the deck and sprightly jumping ashore. The early morning sun danced lightly on the canal's waters. The barges rocked gently to and fro on their moorings, and the painted lock tops gleamed a brilliant, bright white. Even the cobbles of the lock path seemed to glisten. As I headed towards the steps, taking them 2 at a time, I climbed up from the towpath and out of the canal gate. And suddenly, I was there. Camden High Street. The Devil's Cauldron, the world-famous music venue, stood to my left. It was immersed in a shabby shadow of early morning gloom, a short, squat, yet still impressive building. It had recently painted across its doors the words, "Closed by order of the ministry." I shook my head in despair. Another example of these damned cultural laws. Oh, how the Dibble loved these new laws, and they enforced them with an unprecedented zeal, smiling all the while with a gloating satisfaction, the way that bullies always do. It was no exaggeration to say that they enjoyed their work. The cultural laws had come into force in the last few months, and the people were very unhappy with them. There was trouble brewing. You didn't have to be a seer to know that. Me, I'm the quiet type, sullen, reflective, and moody. I like to keep a low profile, so I do as Judy taught me. Keep your nose clean, your head down, and get on with your work, she had always said to me. This was usually followed by a slap around the chops or a swift kick to the pants, and so I learned the rules to live my life by, and I put them into good practice, as any young smuggler would, for I was one of the men they couldn't hang, the female variety obviously, yet still one of the gentlemen. Cultural laws, I shit 'em, I announced. I mean, What is the point of a law if you couldn't find the wriggle room? That's how the world works, right? The king makes a rule, and the dibble enforces it. And we gentlemen, well, we find a small gap in the fence, as it were, a slight crack in the window glass, the space between the light and the dark, the shadows. And working in the shadows, well, we just carry on exactly as we had before, ignoring the laws entirely. Nowadays, talking to yourself, especially if you work alone, like me, on the barges, is a part of life. Still, I don't always give myself the best advice. As I made my way along the towpath, I started to sing. If you wake at midnight and hear a horse's feet, don't go drawing back the blind or looking in the street. Them that ask no questions isn't told a lie. Watch the wall, my darling, while the gentlemen go by. Oh, 25 ponies, trotting through the dark, brandy for the parson, baccy for the clerk, laces for a lady, letters for a spy. Watch the wall, my darling, while the gentlemen go by. Now, just a few strides away from the lock gate is the bridge. The bridge stretches in a graceful arc over the canal. On the other side of the bridge, I could see the alarm point. These alarm points are also new. They are tall, box-shaped cubicles, a bit like an extra-large coffin that has been stood upright on its end. They are painted a bright red and have little glass windows. And just to ensure that you realize that this box is an alarm point, they have the words "alarm point" painted in black on their front and sides. During daylight, the plod stands guard here to monitor the traffic as it crosses the bridge and before it can approach London proper. But at this hour, the gates to the city are still closed and the streets are deserted. On the inside of these alarm points, near the roof, is a metal triangle. It has a beater attached to it on a short length of chain. I felt my stomach churning as I approached it. It seemed to me that I was about to do something that I knew I was going to regret. And yet, I really had no choice. I could think of absolutely no alternative. At least 2 people had seen me with the body. And if I knew that 2 people had seen me, well then, that meant that at least 10 others would have seen me too. In London town, the walls have ears, and sometimes they have eyes, I said softly as I approached the alarm point, carefully avoiding the puddles of last night's rain. I took the beater in hand and released a deep sigh before breathing in deeply, and then I swung the beater from side to side inside the triangle. Please press the like icon. It really helps with the algorithm. Click subscribe to be notified of further installments. You can find more information and other videos at mortalcritters.com. The Mortal Critters ebook is available at Amazon, and the paperbacks are available at all good bookstores.